Hello and welcome to this edition of Healthy Habits. I'm your host, Amie Davis. Today we're going to explore some of the realities and the myths of the good old egg. We have registered dietitian Jeanne Peters with us today. Jeanne, hello, welcome. Thanks so much for being here with us again today.
It's good to be back, and I want to be able to share with people that it's the whole egg that we want to be able to eat again.
Well, so will you go ahead and start unscrambling some of the myths behind eggs? Because
Well
I know
said.
there's a lot of controversy between whole egg whites, yolks.
I know, it's true, and it's actually something really good that just recently the American Heart Association has come out and said after 20, 30 years that we've been telling people just to eat the egg whites and avoid the yolk, that in fact it's not cholesterol that generally impacts our total blood cholesterol. It's actually our kind of addiction to processed carbs and excessive amounts of starch that we're eating that really impacts cholesterol. So I want to be able to reassure people that are listening today that the whole egg is worth eating, and so let's dive right in and share about some of the benefits.
Great, so what are the benefits of, I understand that the yolk and the white together actually form kind of a perfect nutrient-dense egg, rather than before we thought the egg whites were, for the protein.
The egg white is where you get your protein.
Yes.
The yolk is where you're getting the fat. But in addition, what makes that yellow color is sulfur. And sulfur is just a key mineral that we need for almost every single process in the body. Plus choline. Choline is a nutrient that has an affinity for the brain. Like we need phosphatidylcholine. Choline is something that helps to improve how quickly the brain operates. So eggs are a great thing to have on a day that you're going to be taking a test. In general, an egg is about 6 to 7 grams of protein, most of it coming from the white, but the yolk is just equally as important.
So you're not going to get all the benefits of what you just mentioned if you're having just the whites.
Absolutely.
You're missing out on
Eat
a
the whole
lot.
thing. Yeah.
So Jeanne, do you think you can explain a little bit more about why this cholesterol is actually beneficial? I know a lot of people are still going to be kind of worried about the myth around eggs and, too much cholesterol and that sort of thing. So what is it about them?
Well, one of the reasons why eggs got such a bad rap was because one egg has 250 milligrams of cholesterol. But what we're finding out is that the cholesterol that's in eggs, or any food for that matter, is one of the most important ingredients for brain health, because in fact 70% of our brain is fat, and of that fat a good portion of it is some of the basics of cholesterol. So cholesterol feeds your brain.
Now, I understand that you have your own egg-laying hens.
We do.
And that you prefer that to store-bought, although store-bought can be a great choice. Why do you have egg-laying and why do you prefer them over? Can you explain?
My husband and I are empty nesters, so when we went ahead and all our kids left the house, we decided to go ahead
Raise some hens.
raise some hens.
Why
We
not?
had 3 boys and now we're raising 5 female hens. But so a lot of it was just the fun. They're actually quite humorous. But then there's also just the fact that we get to go ahead and get our own eggs every morning. So for us, that was a wonderful addition of keeping us connected to our food source.
Well, for those of us that don't have our own egg-laying hens in our backyard and we have to go to the store and buy them, I know it can be very confusing to read some of these labels and really know the difference between the best quality of eggs. So can you
Sure,
give us
let
some
me go ahead.
pointers?
I'm going to go ahead and just show you. This is a brand in which it says pasture raised. So that means that these hens have been in the pasture. They cannot state that unless in fact hens are spending at least 4 hours. Here in California, we're really quite fortunate because we have the highest standards actually in the entire country. We actually passed legislation several years ago to make sure that if we said something like free range, that in fact those eggs had the ability to be freely moving. They weren't in a cage. But a couple things to look for is you want to make sure it says no antibiotics. That's a distinction, meaning that they're not using antibiotics that can actually deter the quality of the egg. And then no hormones added is another key point. Here in California, that means something. And then finally, when it says all organic feed, basically what that means is that whatever grains they're feeding them are in fact organic.
Now, why is that important for our health? Is it mostly for their health, or?
It's a great question. Actually it's, if we feed our animals in a healthy way, then we derive those benefits because we get those antibiotics into our system, and that's one of the reasons why we're so antibiotic resistant. And then any of those hormones are typically estrogens because it actually causes the animals to increase their water weight. So estrogens impact our system. So absolutely there's a connection between healthier animals and healthier people.
Well, can you show us maybe a homemade recipe, something that we could do with eggs? I know that there's a Mayo that you made here that you're...
Yeah, this is my own homemade mayonnaise, and I'm telling you folks, once you learn how to do this, you'll never go back and buy mayonnaise because it's got flavor. Now this one actually
looks yummy.
Yeah, this one had some herbs in it, but I want to show you this recipe from scratch, and then I'll show you how you can doctor it up because it's so easy. So the first thing we're going to do is just get yourself a ball jar, because when you're finished with this recipe, you can just put the top on and your mayonnaise is all ready to go. So there's 4 ingredients in this mayonnaise, so it's pretty easy. First thing I'm going to do is I'm using a combination of sunflower and red palm oil, which is a great organic superfood. It could just as well be olive oil, or it could be avocado oil. I like this because it's mild, and a lot of times some of the olive oils are very strong, and this just gives a nice fruity flavor. So I'm going to put in probably about like a half a cup, so we're not going to make a full amount. The next thing I put in here is just a little squeeze of a lemon. So I've just got a Meyer lemon off of my tree. It could just as well be any kind of lemon. It could be anything acidic.
Of course you have a lemon tree.
Right.
You have chickens, you know, why not?
But it could be a little vinegar. And then the next ingredient is you need a little bit of Dijon mustard, because Dijon mustard actually emulsifies this. So we're just going to put in what would be equivalent to a teaspoon. There we go, kind of plop that out. And then you need a little bit of sea salt. So we'll just put in like 2 pinches of sea salt.
What do you need next?
An egg.
Just 1 egg.
Now when you're using store-bought eggs, you're going to want to make sure, because salmonella is an issue, and sometimes salmonella exists on the surface of the egg. So you can just take like a 1/4 teaspoon of chlorine bleach in a cup of water, drop your egg in, let it sit there for 10 seconds, and that kills any potential bacteria. Rinse it off. And
you don't need to do that with your homegrown eggs?
You don't need to do it with the homegrown eggs, because you've got, they've got a natural antibiotic on the outside surface in which it stays for about 10 days, so it protects the eggs from any kind of bacteria. Plus we don't have our chickens aren't in close quarters.
Yeah.
So this jar is a little too small to go ahead and put this conversion blender in, so I'm going to go ahead and just stick this into a larger jar. And if you've got an immersion blender, this goes in about a minute. So all we do is just give it a swirl. You can see it's already starting to turn to mayonnaise. Now it's a little thinner at this point, Amy, than what you might have if you were making, let's say if you were buying mayonnaise, but it thickens up. So eggs have a natural affinity for getting really thick. They'll thicken things.
Give you that creamy
for example,
texture.
yeah, like this one, you can see it's got a,
yeah.
You know, here, in fact, try a little taste and see what you think.
That's really good. I'm not a mayonnaise person at all. I could eat that. I really like that.
This is a great recipe to have, and if you use the inversion blender, it'll only take you a minute.
And you just pour it back in there, put the lid on it. It's good in the fridge for probably how long would you say?
Oh, this will last easily a month if you can manage, you know, not eating it before that. It'll be great.
Well, thank you so much, Jeannie. This has been so informative, as always, as usual. It's always great to have you.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for this edition of Healthy Habits. We'll see you next time.